we were both with Keller Williams for a long time,
Correct.
right? Went to mega camp, went to family reunions, went to everything. And I remember sitting in those conventions, sitting in those masterminds, and basically hearing how Zillow was going to take us down.
There was very much a Death Star aspect to the way that KW always talked about Zillow.
Yes, and now they got in bed with them. And so is that, it's better to join your enemies? Because Gary Vee said that you'd be putting out 30 to 50 pieces of content on social media a day.
Yeah, or you're basically a ghost.
Yeah, people won't even know who you are. So
Your parents will forget your name.
we need to get Gary Vee on this so he can just yell at us.
This is like way more of an existential moment than I thought we were going to have on this show today. I think we just uncovered an incredibly
And
philosophical
that third party could easily just flip the script on all of it and say, screw you guys.
Yep.
We're now doing this.
What does our ecosphere look like if we continue to bring in third-party players that aren't based, that don't derive their revenue from keeping the agent at the center of the transaction?
DFW, turn it up. This week in DFW Real Estate. The weekly podcast built for agents who actually get paid. Market moves, listing heat, closing streets. DFW agents. Let's eat.
Definitely don't edit this out. This is the beginning of the show.
This is definitely the beginning. All right, welcome back. What is this, episode 7? You're just holding your hands up? And
I was like, I think I accidentally put 8 there, but you were smart enough to only look at my fingers and not
yeah,
thumbs.
episode 7. We took last week off for spring break. I was out of town. Brian, I don't know what you did.
Spring break. No, I hung out with my daughter.
You said it in the most excitement.
No,
of
it
ways.
just wasn't spring break. It was, I don't do spring break yet. When do they start spring break? When they're in kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could do spring break anytime.
Kindergartners like Miami, right?
Sure. I mean, maybe yours will. Mine
Latino.
decided to go to Tennessee.
How were the Smokies?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's different for you.
that's different. Yeah.
You're usually a Colorado or a beach guy.
Yes. I would say that the kids loved it. I have done it. I don't have to go back. I would go to Colorado. I'd go to Montana. I'd go to Wyoming. I don't need to go back to that part of Tennessee.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I have a hot sports opinion, and I know it might offend some people. I do not get the appeal of Broken Bow, but I also know that some people really love it.
So let me tell you this. This is the mountain version of Broken Bow.
Okay, so it's just a little bit taller.
Yes. Like you have much better views from your balconies, but it's the same. You're doing the same thing. You could do ATV tours. You could, go into town, which, that part of Tennessee is just tourist trap. It just felt like it was just like a carny.
Just buying souvenirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We did the go-karts.
Yeah.
The putt-putt. Yes. So I highly recommend it on your spring break.
Deal.
Yeah.
I'm in. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, everyone.
But yeah, welcome back. And so last week, I think it was last week when this came out, I was like, oh, we definitely need to talk about this on the show. There was some announcements that have come that were dropped. Keller Williams came out and they put out a release that they made a partnership deal with Zillow.
Can we educate Brian for a few minutes so he doesn't go down rabbit holes on his own? So I want to dig into this. I will admit that obviously I've seen all the headlines. I've read some of the stories. They're not they're not deep on details. Can somebody explain to me, because it's not just KW, we're going to get into a lot more, right? A lot of the big brokerages, United as well, where I am a partner, is utilizing this strategy. Can we just focus on the KW-Zillow one? What does it entail as far as like the pre-market aspect?
Before we break into that,
Okay.
right, we need to support our sponsors. Right. So go and support Homeward Property Management, homewardDFW.com. Dana, Wynn, and Duncan O'Donnell are here and ready to take on your clients that are looking to lease out their properties. Maybe they need management. Right. We've had several great agent referrals over the past week and a half, and a lot of accidental landlords. So go to homewardDFW.com, connect with Dana, and Duncan, and they'll get you taken care of. And then if you're looking for any remodeling, handyman work, HVAC, plumbing, you name it, from roofing to siding to windows, ProCare Home Solutions has you covered. Go to procaredfw.com. They have some great financing as well. So if your clients, maybe your seller needs to do some major repairs, maybe they need to do some updates, maybe they're under contract and need to get some stuff done, but they don't have the money. They can apply for financing, pay it off at closing. So procaredfw.com. And then Jesse Showalter with Tor Home Solutions.
Tor Home.
Tor Studios. Tor Studios. Go to torstudios.com. Tor Home Solutions could be.
Well, hey, this is not a bad idea.
Yeah. Torstudios.com if you want a podcast just like this. Jesse, I think you're also shooting. Are you shooting some video? Did you pimp Jesse out for some video work?
I did. I have an unread text message, but I think we're on. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So Jesse will do some video work for you as well. Torstudios.com. Check it out. And because Gary V said that you'd be putting out 30 to 50 pieces of content on social media a day.
Yeah, or you're basically a ghost.
Yeah. People won't even know who you are. So
your parents will forget your name.
We need to get Gary V on this so he can just yell at us. But let's go dive into this a little bit more, Jesse. As you pull this up, the Keller Williams deal, which as we look at it, it's the Zillow preview.
Right.
Right. And this is the coming soon, exposure, correct?
So that's what I was asking about, and I just wanted to Jesse pulled up the details. So this is the coming soon so Zillow essentially has this new pre-market feature that will be available to Keller Williams agents, and then they're not the only ones. We're going to go down the rabbit hole on this. And so where I was curious, and you just pulled this up, is the compliance aspect of this. So essentially, am I right in thinking that the general idea here is I can put my home on Zillow coming soon? But it's not on the MLS yet coming soon.
No.
But how does showings work if you want to see it? Because MLS compliance, I'm not allowed to show it though, right? That's what I was curious about. So if I have my ducks in an order here, we're going to talk about some of the other, like the Realtor.com and Homes.com thing, but like this Zillow pre-market feature, I can showcase my listing prior to it going on the MLS, but I still have to adhere to the MLS guidelines. So if I'm not allowed to show it pre-market in my MLS, then I still can't show it, even though it's on Zillow.
Look, this is the coming soon, the pre-listing, the exposure of it. Correct. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. I just want to make sure that I understood the program. Okay.
Yes. And so look, the biggest thing that I looked at, I was kind of taken away on this at first was that, Gary Keller, we were both with Keller Williams for a long time.
Correct.
Right? Went to mega camp, went to family reunions, went to everything. And I remember sitting in those conventions, sitting in those masterminds, and basically hearing how Zillow was going to take us down.
There was very much a Death Star aspect to the way that KW always talked about Zillow.
Yes. And now they got in bed with them. And so is that, it's better to join your enemies?
I was going to say, if you can't beat them, join them type thing. It is funny how quickly we've pivoted. Was it 2 years ago we were having a conversation around cooperation and things like that, and then the and what you can and can't put on the MLS, and then the big talk there is like, well, what if the big brokerages just go make their own MLSs and clear cooperation? Thank you. And then now we've gone the exact opposite direction, and not only are we not making our own MLSs, where some of the big names are partnering with Zillow when they said they would never do that.
Correct.
Isn't that crazy? We went from, what if Gary just makes his own MLS? What would that do for KW to Gary just partner with Zillow for pre-market access? I'm saying this in a completely non-judgmental way, by the way. I am an observer of the industry, and I think that that's an interesting turnaround.
Well, I think it's also, let's look at the people that say they would never do something. They would go out on a very far limb, like, I won't do this, I won't do that, as a business leader. And not that I don't think Gary's ever said that, just Gary has been very vocal in his views and stance of what Zillow is and how they haven't been there to actually protect the agent, and Gary has. So to me, the messaging and the visual aspect, again, this is not I'm not here to hate on Keller Williams. They have phenomenal agents, phenomenal brokerage, phenomenal leadership. What I'm looking at is are we turning our views, or do we now believe that Zillow is here to protect the agent, or is this the sign of the times that the train has left the station and there's no going back, and so we need to jump aboard and just find the max exposure for agents?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw an interesting caveat in there as well to consider is I love having a show where we can just talk about what we think, and like I don't think we ever say anything mean, but I think we're like willing to say things and ask people to consider things that like maybe people on other shows don't want to touch. And like, if you don't like what we say, then like, whatever, we're not being rude about it. I wonder how much of this is, there's some other voices in the room at KW now. And not only that, at a lot of these brokerages, Stone Capital Partners. What is it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I got it right.
Yeah, the majority partnership now with Keller Williams.
What is it again? Can you look at that really fast? Stonehenge Capital Partner. I think it was just Stone Creek or Stone Capital. But obviously, Gary is still a massive influence and decision maker in the company. But I wonder how much of this is also being driven by Stone Point. Thank you, Stone Point Capital. I wonder how much of some of these decisions are also being influenced by private equity. And who has an entirely different viewpoint on the real estate industry, and that's not specific to KW. The private equity has a massive foothold in residential real estate at the brokerage level. So I think it's an interesting time because I'm wondering how much of these decisions are still made by like real estate purists that have been doing this for a living for 60 years, and how much of it is some private equity stuff that thinks, hey, we can make a small adjustment here, make a partnership, and give ourselves an incremental advantage for our listing exposure, and whether or not that actually ends up translating in the real world, I think is kind of secondary. I'm just wondering, are all these decisions really being driven by the decision makers that we assume they're being driven by?
It's a great question. I would say, look, and again, let's take it. I'm going to take the focus a little bit away from Keller Williams for a second. EXP, a couple of days later, made the announcement that they did a partnership with Realtor.com, Homes.com, and then Come Home. And
so to just give you a scope on this, so Zillow, 200 million users per month, Realtor.com combined with Homes.com, 170 million users per month. So almost neck and neck, relatively similar amount of exposure. And
do these come about? Because I did have my first experience of this yesterday. I was talking to a potential buyer. Is this where we have to start making these deals and these partnerships because of the Redfin Rocket Mortgage merger? And now you've got Compass, who is, technically with everything they own, the largest real estate brokerage in the United States.
Yeah. So
do you have to start making these partnerships because of the views, right? So I had a call yesterday with a potential buyer, and she had watched one of our videos. And when I made the call, she knew who I was. And as I was going through the process saying, hey, why didn't you take the next step? She's like, oh, I'm already working with somebody. I'm going down the process. I'm like, who are you working with? She said, Rocket Mortgage. I'm like, okay, what about an agent? She's like, one of the Rocket Mortgage's preferred agents. She couldn't tell me the benefit, though. I was like, are you getting any benefit out of it? And she's like, no, it's just been good so far. I haven't signed anything yet. Right. So we're still able to have and continue on the relationship. But is this something that at the executive levels that they're seeing is that we need to have more eyeballs and more traffic, which is Zillow's got the 200 million plus. You've got Homes.com, Realtor.com. I think if I remember correctly, the Redfin brokerage site was third or fourth in terms of the amount of traffic that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yes.
I think it's third or fourth. Yeah,
third
it's really
or fourth.
Big. Yeah.
So is this something that, hey, at the brokerage level for the agents, right? If I'm looking at this from a pros and cons level, from a pros, you say, all right, this brokerage that I'm with Keller Williams, and I can get this as the Zillow preview, and this is going to get you in front of hopefully millions of eyeballs.
Right.
Right. The same thing now with EXP. I can get you on Homes.com, Come Home and Realtor.com, and get you in front of $170+ million plus eyeballs as well.
Yeah. So if that's the case, though, so then what is the real opportunity to differentiate? And what I mean by that is we just started off talking about Keller Williams mostly because they're for a long time there was a leader of Keller Williams that made a lot of statements around them not doing these types of partnerships, right? So we're not trying to pick on anybody. They're a big brokerage and it was surprising to see that partnership because they've mostly been antithetical towards Zillow for a long time. But they're not the only ones. Berkshire Hathaway, United Real Estate, right, where I'm employed, we've got a lot of incredibly smart people at United that I trust in inherently, right? Home Services of America, which is part of Berkshire, Remax side. They're all partnering with Zillow on this pre-market program. And then you've got the homes.com and the realtor.com. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if everybody starts to go this direction, what is the incremental gain at that point? And I pose that question in this context. We went through a radical change a few years ago in how we get compensated as agents. And in the build up to that, we were talking about it like the world was going to fall apart. I mean, truly. And we were talking about it for like a couple years. And now we're a couple years removed and things have changed a little bit. I'm not going to say they haven't, that they've been exactly the same. But if you compare the build up to that to where things stand now from a compensation standpoint, do you think there was a little bit too much emphasis placed on what the world was going to look like after that went into effect as to how it actually showed up in reality? I certainly think so. Nick runs a massive team. It hasn't radically changed the way his agents are compensated. There's been some changes, but it just hasn't been as big as I think people thought it was. And so are we, I'm not saying it's much ado about nothing, but are we over considering the impact of what this may actually do to the home selling experience?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the more that I think about this, number one is let's be real here. Unless you have like some outlier of a house or a property, does a coming soon do that much?
That you can't see in person yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. I'm trying to think of just a use case where it just gives you a really, really substantial advantage, especially because, we just listed all the people doing these types of partnerships. That's like 50% of the market right there.
Well, and again, and maybe people can school us in the comments. Go to YouTube, go to our YouTube channel, go into our Facebook group, DFW Realtors. School us. Tell us we're wrong. And
we may be. I'm
look. We could be completely off, or we've not used this the way that we should be using it. But at the same time, what I've found in the past is these coming soons and these supposed exposures. It sounds good when you're on a listing.
We used to have in the North Texas MLS, couldn't you be coming soon for like a month?
2 weeks, I think it was.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Did anybody's sales drastically just...
I think it was great during the COVID market.
It definitely was great during a very unique time in human history.
So are we doing coming soons when inventory is at one of the highest it's been in decades?
Right.
And now we're over here focused on coming soons and getting those eyeballs versus I'd much rather be looking at these portals and saying, hey, you know what you get? You know what the partnership should be? Because you're with Keller Williams, you're with EXP, you're with Compass, you're with whomever, United, is that when you list and you join this brokerage and you list with us, you get premier placement on homes.com, on Zillow, on realtor.com. And you know what? You get the lead back. Instead of they click on there, and maybe they do some of that.
Yeah,
I don't think they do. I haven't heard it a lot of. I haven't seen that as a major feature being touted. What I've heard is, hey, you get millions of eyeballs beforehand, which again, unless you've got some very, very one-off property that's going to photograph well, that's going to then maybe be a viral sensation,
right?
Then you're right. Is this even that big of a deal?
So you just made a really good point, and we always keep this show broker agnostic, so I won't go too deep down the rabbit hole. But like I said, we have some incredibly smart people at United who have made a different type of partnership with Zillow. It's more in that vein that I think is probably one of the most valuable things they've done for their agents, and it doesn't involve the coming soon aspect. It involves the premier placement aspect. I think that's a better play. Because if everybody's doing the coming soon, then it's not really coming soon. It's coming at the same time as everybody else. You just can't see it yet.
Yeah, and Jesse pulled up here, supposedly when a buyer clicks on contact agent on the preview listing, the lead is often routed directly to the listing agent. That's great, but what happens when it goes live? What happens when you actually go active and can show it?
Yeah. Does it revert back to the same setup?
I'm not sure.
With the Premier agent?
I will tell you that, look, Zillow has been calling me to look at some of their other programs and their Flex and everything else like that. And to get into that, it still would cost me $10,000 to $15,000 a month.
Yeah,
it's just not, to me, I have yet to see why it's been worth it. The people that got in and took advantage of it early, that are now on the Zillow Flex side, that they're paying referral fees, and they're able to use that as almost a springboard into other things that then make them more profitable. Good for them.
Yeah.
I just don't see, again, maybe I'm too cheap on this. I just don't see the benefit of spending $10,000+ every single month on high cost leads.
Oh, agreed. I think that's why they switched to the Flex model. One just personal opinion, for the things that Zillow's done for their lead programs, I think the Flex model is one of the smartest things they've ever done, because costs were mounting on the pay-per-lead model. If you were going to get any sort of foothold, you had to start spending a lot of money. And most agents just don't have that up front. So it was really, really cost prohibitive. But Flex is obviously, there's a split on it, but you're always better off on a lead program where you don't pay until closing. I mean, you're just going to get more agent adoption.
I'm going to go, let's kind of break down pros and cons of this, right? So look, if you're as an agent and you can look, any partnership you can use and leverage that out to put in front of your potential seller client as a major benefit, right? And so that's one of the benefits is you can talk with your sellers, especially the ones that maybe aren't listing right away. You can do those coming soons. So you can build that hype phase. You can build them, hopefully massive interest and or create a waiting list.
Sure.
I haven't seen a waiting list in this market, so I'm not trying to burst any bubbles, but I think that sometimes we may set ourselves up for creating
let's not overpromise
false expectations,
right. Yeah,
or setting a bar and a standard that's hard to live by. But again, you can do that because of the partnerships that whatever brokerage you're with has made. It can be 0 days on the market, right? You get the benefit of public exposure without having the listing go stale.
That's true. That is a good point.
Because if you do coming soon in the MLS, your days on market start then.
Yeah, which I always thought was strange because it's like coming soon, but the clock starts ticking now.
Yeah.
That's
right. Supposedly, again, maybe you get a little bit of the direct lead capture. So if you're not paying for Zillow, maybe, again, I don't know how it works all the way.
Right.
So again, school us if we're wrong.
Well, the price testing aspect is really important too. If I put it coming soon at a certain point, at a certain price point, I can monitor how many looks it's gotten, saves it's gotten, favorites it's gotten, stuff like that. And so if I know like, hey, we're going to try to price it at a certain price point, we think it might be kind of the upper echelon of what we might get, I can have a better conversation with my sellers, say, hey, we're priced accurately, or we're not getting a lot of saves. We're not getting a lot of attention on the coming soon. We probably want to make a price adjustment before we actually hit the market. That I could see that.
Yeah.
Also, though, that does beg the question: if everybody's doing coming soon and you're making price adjustments, I mean, isn't it just like going on the market and making a price adjustment? So, and then I guess
it won't show on the MLS though.
It won't show on the MLS, but I wonder, will it show on Zillow?
Ooh, good question on the history.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I guess I wonder this. This has been not keeping me up at night. This is like popped into my head many times.
You have no problems if this is keeping you up at night.
Right, exactly. I got way bigger things keeping me up at night. But this has popped into my head several times since we've been talking about this. Is like, does anybody have a metric on how many sellers are actually going to be taking advantage of this? Like the whole bit is that you can be coming soon for like what, a month or something with this program. How many sellers? I mean, we've all sold thousands of homes at this point. How many sellers are ready to go a month before they go on the market?
Well, we didn't have something like this to really promote. So we don't. I mean, the real question is, now that we have something to promote, would you come in and say, all right, you really wanted to list in June, right? So we're now in April. Let's go ahead and get your house in show ready condition. Let's go ahead and get in photograph ready condition. Let's take those photos. And when we're a month out from you ready to go live, we'll put this up as coming soon. Let's go ahead and sign the listing and paperwork. So there could be, I could always find a way to make this beneficial.
I think so. If their timeline is that far out, I just, what percentage of listing appointments do we go on where we're signing the listing agreement and they want to be ready to go in the next few weeks?
Well, how many listing appointments could you be setting? Utilizing
if you
this,
were utilizing this,
if you were utilizing this to say, hey, I actually have a benefit and a feature for you. I'd like to come out and show and talk about it with you because I know you said you were June or July timeframe.
I think, yeah.
So we don't know that metric yet, but I will go back and say,
smart agents will use that.
Yeah, the cons of this is the no showing trap, which you could be bombarded with calls from aggressive agents and buyers demanding to see the house now because again, buyers don't understand the no showings. And yeah. I will say that there was an agent in here locally that had a property coming soon. One of my clients wanted to see it, and she was demanding to see it. And I did try to get in there, right? I'm going to admit we didn't, so I didn't break anything. But I was trying to get into that house, so that will happen. So the no showings trap, maybe the clear cooperation stress if you have a tight window. I don't know if that's
that's going to be specific kind of to your MLS. I think
I would is it double the work because now you're essentially managing 2 launches. So is your operations team, if your TC team, if you're not doing this yourself, they need to understand the nuances and the processes behind it, and then really seller confusion. They don't get this, right? The sellers. They don't understand all this. They don't get the look behind the curtain. They just get to hear what you like, all the stuff that you're touting and promoting. And so is there going to be the seller might see that there's higher engagement on Zillow, but then they might wonder why there's no offer, why we can't do the showings. And does this cause stress and frustration for them?
That's an interesting point. I certainly haven't had a conversation with a seller about this yet, but there's a pretty good guiding principle around services for clients and customers when you run a business. And that is, figure out the problem and find the solution. And that's your service, right? Now you can also take the Steve Jobs approach where they don't know what their problem is until you give them the solution. But unless you're going to invent the Apple iPhone, it's probably better to stick to the former, not the latter, right? And so I guess where I think this may actually cause some confusion is I'm trying to have a conversation with a seller around here's a value add of working with me. I'm with, United Real Estate. We can do, the coming soon Zillow Preferred. I've got to be really well coached on how to have that conversation because the seller most likely has no idea that I couldn't put pictures of my home on the MLS or the market and do this. They probably have no idea around regulations or things like that, or how this is really a value add to them until you really explain it to them. And if you're not well coached around how to explain this to them, it might actually create more confusion than if you were to just to list the home.
Yeah.
So you got to be pretty well versed in how to describe this as a benefit.
I will also say there's something that keeps coming up when we kind of run this through some of our programs and just to kind of nail down, part of this podcast is through our AI portions of this is it keeps bringing up referral fees, that there could be some of these Zillow preferred coming soon deals may come with a success fee or referral percentage. I don't know if that means if the lead converts and could eat into your commission. I won't dive into that too much because we don't know the full details of the partnership.
Right.
But the final verdict, when you run this through any AI program as well, the final verdict says these programs are best for highly photogenic homes and in low inventory markets.
Yeah, this would have murdered in 2021. Right.
Yeah. So why couldn't we have done this deal back then?
Should have done the deal back then. You know what I would be interested in, Jesse, is can this parlay? Because one of the things I think that one of the Zillow's best products is Zillow Showcase. You see showcase listings as opposed to regular Zillow listings
because they show up above everything else.
Yes, one, you get priority placement, and two, they pop. You have to work with the specific, basically certified photographers like Snapply and stuff that follow their guidelines. But they look really good, really, really good. I think it's worth the money to do Zillow Showcase on most listings above maybe a certain price point, right?
Because you pay per listing.
You pay per listing. And again, we're broker agnostic, but some of the really smart brokerages out there are cutting partnerships that make those types of products, a better get for their agents. I'm wondering if you could do Zillow Showcase coming soon.
That might be, you parlay those two, now you might have something. Otherwise, I just kind of feel like you're coming soon, but if everybody else is able to as well.
But how many, all right, so again, as I look at the pros and cons, all right, from the agent side, there's some pros, like smart agents can still use this to their advantage on listings, right? And converting listings, right? Again, the maybe not that many cons about it, a little bit of extra work, et cetera on that. But from a brokerage level, right, there's, if you're a brokerage owner, maybe you're a team leader that runs a brokerage, or you just want you're an agent that just loves your brokerage and you want them to be successful, which hopefully most agents do. There's the advantage that, hey, there's a stronger value proposition for maybe recruiting and retaining agents.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Hopefully there's an improved listing conversion rates by giving these agents so they can tell their clients better stories.
Yep.
And really help them visualize that.
Jesse, can you pull up Zillow? Will you try to find? Obviously, we can't put this on the screen on the fly, but I want to see what a showcase listing looks like coming soon, and we could just see how like different the product looks than just a regular Zillow listing. Because that's something that I think is actually, you could just go to Zillow, and just do a search in Dallas. You see what I'm saying? And the showcase ones do Dallas, filter by coming soon, and then we'll look at the showcase ones at the top. If you guys have not seen this yet, like this is actually a pretty big difference. And I think it's one of the best products that Zillow's kind of ever put out. So if we just go by, so for every showcase, so there you go. So now can we do, okay, so there you go. So we can do that one with the patio there. That's cool. So they do they do the floor plans, virtual staging, 3D home tours, everything. So their showcases, it's like you're able to walk through the entire property. You have a floor plan, all that type of stuff. I can see parlaying this with coming soon, and now you probably have a pretty big advantage. Because if I'm able to do the 3D tour, you've got the virtual staging. Isn't that cool, dude? You could do the virtual staging with different styles of furniture.
So you can do that. You can swipe to see how it's it's vacant to it's not. They've done a great job on that. And again, brokerages, if they cut a better deal, because it is expensive.
It costs money.
It costs a good amount of money. I mean, I would love to be able to do that, but again, it can be cost prohibitive. Yeah. But again, so you look at this from the brokerage side of things. It's like, and even agents now, we're increasing our dependency on third party sites.
Yeah, the aspect of this conversation we haven't even dug into yet is why are the major real estate tech companies like the Zillows and the realtors in homes.com and Redfin, why are they able to just snap their fingers and do things that the MLS won't let us do and just make us more dependent on them? Is it that hard to just let us do coming soon listings on our own MLS and just, you know what I mean? Like,
but why can't the brokerages look? Compass will be the largest by agent count, so they could do this. Why can't? Sure. Why can't they come together as a conglomerate and say, hey, if you had Compass, EXP, Keller Williams, and then you start throwing in the others that, they're over 100,000. I don't even know after that. Compass has bought so many that there's not many more over 100,000.
I think it's only KW and EXP.
Well, EXP is at 80 something.
Yeah, okay, so lots of you. So I don't think there's another brokerage over 100,000 that Compass doesn't own.
Remax. Right? How many is Remax?
No, Remax doesn't have it. Can you Google Remax agent? I think they're only at 60.
But if you look at that, why can't the brokerages? We'd rather go and depend on the Zillows, the Homes.coms, the Realtor.coms. When could you go and pool money together? Because I'm assuming this costs the brokerage. It eats into their margin too.
Yeah,
they're not just cutting a deal.
I don't think it's free. Yeah, I agree. So. Yeah, Remax. Oh, no, you're right. I was totally wrong. Remax is a little over 100,000.
Yeah, Remax 100, and then your Home Services of America 44 plus. So when you look at it, why can't you get these top ones, and then you can start finding ways to get traffic away. Mm-hmm. You can start designing where you have these platforms that Homes.com didn't just pop out of nowhere. They built it over several times now. CoStar owns them.
Yeah.
I don't know what Come Home is.
I've never actually heard of them.
But when we look at now, we're becoming more dependent on these third-party platforms. We lose control over how listings are distributed.
Right.
right? There's pressure on margins due to we need more tech involved, and the tech is not cheap. So do we run the risk as a brokerage and as as agents? Again, the long-term risk is the platforms are the ones that gain the influence over anything else.
So as what you mentioned something just a little bit earlier about, the big brokerages coming together, is that you feel like the solution is to get the brokerages that have 700,000 licenses to all come together and build something on their own? Because I see the pros and cons there. It's kind of like a common enemy in Zillow. For them to all have to come together, they have to admit that they're sacrificing some sort of competitive advantage that one could potentially have over the other. If they're all coming together to create a value piece that they're all sharing, is it more advantageous for the biggest guns in the room to go make better partnerships with third parties that they feel that the brokerages of a smaller size can't compete with?
It's a great question.
I
look at it this way. I look at it from because we're as a brokerage, you're competing against the other brokerages. You would rather go do the deals with the third parties, and you're building the third party brand at a much higher level where the third party has no loyalty to that brokerage.
I think we just uncovered an incredibly philosophical
that third party could easily just flip the script on all of it and say, screw you guys.
Yep.
We're now doing this.
This is like way more of an existential moment than I thought we were going to have on this show today. I think the fundamental question to uncover is at a large enough scale, are brokerages better off acting as collaborators or competitors? Because if they act as competitors, then they have a vested interest in trying to outdo one another, even potentially at the expense of themselves over time. Meaning, if I'm big enough and I can go form a partnership with a third-party company that no other competitor can, well, I'm also empowering that third-party company.
Let me ask you this. Are we saying that the only value add that a brokerage has is through the exposure through these third-party sites or creating their own? Because if that's the only value they're saying they have, then all brokerages are there's no value in the brokerage.
Right.
So does this actually make the brokerage better if they come and collaborate together on something like this to gain exposure,
right,
where there's no actual different competitive advantage on that, but they can then go build a better competitive advantage on better training on their agents, better XYZ. And then now they're saying, hey, come join me because we're going to be able to get you this, and this. We're going to be like whatever that may be.
Yeah. So I think you just kind of outlined my question pretty well, right? Is put the coming soon listings aside. I'm just talking on a very general sense. Are brokerages better off acting as collaborators and instead of competitors in some regards to protect their ecosystem so that their ecosystems continues to thrive and they can create their own distinct value propositions, right? So what I mean by that is whether it's coming soon listings or any other piece of value, if the largest, most influential and deepest pocketed brokerages go and essentially start to outsource their value proposition to a third party, then eventually you give so much power to that third party that they could essentially influence the entire ecosphere and maybe start to cut agents out and things like that. So it's almost like I guess Europe's a great example, right? Take Europe, right? Are European countries better off collaborating with each other economically or trying to outsource and compete with one another? Most of the time, collaborate. It creates a better ecosystem, right, for most of Europe, right? Otherwise, it may cease to exist eventually. You see what I'm saying? And so are brokerages better collaborating on some things to insulate themselves from essentially, I don't call it hostile takeovers, but outside influence that eventually could threaten their essentially their way of life, which is their licenses and their agent's ability to be at the center of the transaction, so that they can actually go and compete on a more level playing field and create their own distinct advantages within that ecosystem instead of outsourcing their value propositions. I think that's a really powerful existential question because in some level, I think it behooves brokerages to collaborate, not just compete all the time.
Yeah. But again, has the train left the station?
We keep asking this question around when are Zillow and Redfin and all these companies going to start to cut the agent out? And so far it hasn't happened. The agent is still at the center of the transaction. And I think these things always become more obvious in hindsight. The inflection point of where we strayed from the path is usually crystal clear like 10 years later. I don't know if this is it, but I think we're definitely having the right conversation around what does our ecosphere look like if we continue to bring in third-party players that aren't based, that don't derive their revenue from keeping the agent at the center of the transaction? What does that do for the industry long term? I think that's like a really simple first principles question we should be asking is how do we always keep the agent at the center of the transaction, even if it means we have to cooperate with one another?
Let's look at this, assuming that there's no collaboration. How does this have an impact? Let's take an independent brokerage.
Okay.
Right. There was an agent, actually he was with DPR for a long time. I just saw a post that he's going out on his own and starting his own brokerage. And I always wonder about the starting their own brokerage, like especially in today's world, it's hard, depending on what the visual is and what you believe that brokerage can be. It is hard to compete with these big brand and big box brokerages. And so how did making these partnerships, because I'm assuming these independents aren't able to make these types of deals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it takes to make these types of deals, but a lot of these independents, until you get a lot of traction in the brokerage world, it can be pretty lean to run these things, right? So even if they are able to make these partnerships now, it would probably be pretty easy if the big box brokerages wanted to overpower them. They could at any point just say, we'll pay you more to exclude small indies, so you're vulnerable there.
Yeah, because and does this start eating into their recruiting? They don't have a recruiting advantage right? They maybe have a retention problem after this. It's like, every agent, especially when times are tough, they start looking around and saying, "Oh, is the grass greener at this brokerage? What secret sauce to this?" I mean, I'd be like, the team leader is making it sound amazing over here that I could easily build $1 million business and not have to do really any real work.
Right.
And then you get over there and you realize it's all the same stuff.
Still work.
Yes, it's still work. But we always start to look at, who's got a better lead generation system, who's got that secret, honey hole, and they're able just to,
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the next 10 or 15 years looks like in this industry, because when we think about indie brokerages, I think in the current state of affairs, it's very difficult for indie brokers to compete with some of the firepower that the big box brokerages have, the deals they're doing, the partnerships they're making, the tech they're building, all of that kind of stuff. And so I do see in the short term that indie brokers are going to really have to consider their value proposition, who they are, what their unique selling proposition is, and whether that's culture, community. Like, there's agents out there that have different philosophies around how to build their business. And I don't think that the indie world is going away, but what I think is going to be interesting is I think it might be harder for indie brokers to compete now, but just like high finance and Wall Street, when high frequency trading became the norm, technology becoming so fast moving and easier to build and cheaper to create new things, exciting things, industry changing things. I wonder if you're going to start seeing maybe 5 years from now, that's just a random kind of number. Like, do you actually see indie brokerages that have created tech that other big box brokerages are a little bit too slow moving to build now or to adopt because they've got to tear down so much of their infrastructure? Almost like we call them garage band hedge funds are able to take massive market share, even though they only have like 6 people that work there, because they've got really smart people building really smart things. And all of a sudden they've got a unique selling proposition that didn't exist at all anymore. So does the future for indie brokerages actually look really promising in a whole different way? But we have to stop looking at indie brokerages like they're mom and pop shops. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They might look totally different in the future.
Yeah, if they, the ones that are utilizing the AI technology and the
they might be
agents.
building like totally amazing indie platforms that nobody else has even thought of that just like take the market by storm. It was, EXP didn't grow really quickly right in the beginning, but they did have a relatively revolutionary idea with the revenue share platform, and that's where they gained a lot of traction. Imagine that same type of thing with technology. You could build a brokerage that looks totally different than anything anybody's ever seen before, and you don't need to have $1 billion in the bank to do it. That might shake things up in a way we can't even really predict right now.
Let's do it.
We don't know what the idea is yet, but Claude knows.
Yeah, just whatever Claude says, Claude's the CEO. We got to see about revolutionizing property management, which I know Homeward is already doing that. They're doing that with launching some AI agents and their business. I know that Duncan and Dana are kicking butt, and I would highly recommend sending referrals over that, right? Because what I've seen with agents, especially when they're putting their clients' houses up for leases, they actually don't know what they're doing. They just take photos of it, put it on there, and then they wonder how to screen tenants, how are they doing it correctly? Get it over to Homeward, homewardDFW.com. Duncan and Dana, what they'll do is they'll pay you a referral fee. And I'd highly recommend having that landlord have it professionally managed, because they're not professionally managed people, right? So they're not good at that, right? So if someone's not paying, they take really, really offense to it. They get emotional about it, and they don't know what to do. And so Homeward DFW does, homewardDFW.com. And then like we said in the beginning of this show, if your clients need to have their house remodeled, maybe they got some deferred maintenance, maybe they want to do some updates, go over to ProCare Home Solutions, ProCareDFW.com. They've got some great financing that Chris will set them up with if they need that financing option. And your sellers could do 100% where they can pay it off at closing.
Oh, man, what a deal. Love it.
What about Tor Studios?
TORE Studios.com. I realize I haven't spelled it in a while. TORE Studios. Jesse will hook you up there, make you look amazing on camera, whether it's doing your own podcast, editing your YouTube videos. Jesse's got the entire suite of services over at TORstudios.com. Make sure you go check out the YouTube channel for this show and give us some feedback. We love hearing what you guys' thoughts are on this. This is literally just our minds from the experience that we have of sharing our opinions and thoughts in the industry. So we always love to have conversations with you guys.
Will you read the comments, Brian? Because you don't.
I try not to.
Somebody commented on there about how it was one of my YouTube shorts about how I'd go back in time and talk to my friends and family and ask for referrals. He's like, oh, so you'd go back in time and just spam them? I'm like, if providing value and asking my friends and family for support of my business is spamming, then yes, I would.
My fragile heart is too nervous to read the comments. I can't do it. This is a side note. I don't know what compels people to write mean stuff on the internet. I don't know. I just don't have the constitution to do it. I think a lot of mean stuff probably when I scroll and watch reels, but I just don't have the constitution to pick up my thumbs and actually type it. People are wild.
The only mean thoughts I have is in our DFW Realtors group. Go check it out. All the spam.
Stop spamming, guys.
The self-promotion spam crap needs to stop.
We're going to need to lower the threshold of warnings that you get from 5 to 0.
Jesse's a moderator in there now, and he just loves to ban people.
We're going to give Jesse a uninhibited decision-making power on who stays and who goes, and he's going to rule it with an iron fist.
That's right. All right, we've got our monthly realtor meetup to go to. Make sure to go to the next one. It's the last Thursday of every month at Mexican Bar Company. We are looking for ambassadors to start hosting these meetings in other locations, because everyone that isn't near the Plano area, maybe Grapevine, maybe Tarrant County, we would love to have people who are here to help support the cause.
This is a call to action. Everyone's like, well, if you did them closer to me, I'd come. Step up and partner with us to host it, and you organize it, and we'll get the people there.
Absolutely. All right. Leave us a review. We'll see you next time.
And a happy opening day to you and yours.
DFW, turn it up.